Hello everyone, I'm Clovis Casali and this is Inside the Americas. Coming up on the show. A historic impeachment trial in Washington set to damage President Donald Trump. But will it also affect the Democratic primary? 4 senators are forced to pause their campaign. We'll also bring you a special report from our correspondent in Brazil looking at a water crisis in areas of Rio. Residents say it's contaminated and don't dare to drink it. We'll take a boat ride right to the source of the problem. And 100 years ago exactly began in the United States a period where alcohol was totally banned. The prohibition has left its mark in history books, and we'll look at its heritage. But first to Washington, where the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump is having repercussions on the Democratic primary. It has taken off the campaign trail 4 candidates who are instead attending the trial as jurors. For Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders and Michael Bennet, it means missing decisive campaign events. As we've entered the final stretch before the Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primary, this could play on the outcome of the race to the White House. Yeneli has more.
Fundraisers, conferences and town hall meetings. For several months now, Elizabeth Warren has been giving her all on the campaign trail. The Massachusetts representative is one of the favourites for this year's Democratic primaries. But with the Trump impeachment trial, the sitting senator is pausing her campaign to uphold her constitutional duties.
The nomination is confirmed. Look, some things are more important than politics. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. It says that no one is above the law. That includes the President of the United States. If we have an impeachment trial, I will be there because it is my responsibility.
She's not the only candidate to take a step back. Senators Bernie Sanders, Amy Klobuchar and Michael Bennet will also be present on Capitol Hill and bound to the rules of the impeachment proceedings. The 100 US senators have been told to stay silent during the trial and leave their mobile phones at the door. As the chamber turns into a courtroom, the senator jurors have sworn to be impartial and are expected to focus on the case before them. The Trump impeachment trial kicked off at an awkward time for the Democratic primaries, just ahead of the crucial Iowa caucus.
It's important because it's the start of the race. If you miss the start, you end up lagging behind, and it could be very difficult to catch up when the person ahead of you is Joe Biden, and is already the favourite and leading national polls.
The trial is set to take place 6 days a week, a setback for the presidential candidates who also happen to be senators. They'll be sending stand-ins to represent them on their campaign trails, potentially giving an edge to 2 frontrunners, former Vice President Joe Biden and South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
And to the number of the week, it's 76. That's how many prisoners managed to escape in a mass prison break in Paraguay. The move has raised eyebrows and suspicions of corruption, as authorities reportedly knew of the plan beforehand. Most of the escapees belong to a notorious Brazilian gang specialized in arms and drug trafficking. Like other Brazilian cartels, it uses Paraguay as a transit point.
This is the getaway tunnel officials say 76 inmates used to escape from a prison in Paraguay's northeast. The penitentiary in the city of Pedro Juan Caballero sits along the border with Brazil. So far, Brazilian border police have arrested at least one of the fugitives.
We are working with the Federal Republic of Brazil in order to coordinate the investigation tasks, to know when these people enter and carry out punishable acts.
Most of the escapees belong to a gang known as PCC, or First Capital Command, one of Brazil's most powerful criminal organizations. Investigators say the tunnel ran from a prison bathroom and was complete with internal lighting. Masses of sandbags were discovered in jail cells. For the authorities, there's no doubt prison staff were aware of the plot.
With the number of escapees, it's impossible nobody noticed. We seized CCTV cameras, cell phones of those involved, computers, and a logbook.
In light of the mass escape, the prison warden has been sacked and several guards arrested. Meanwhile, Paraguay's Deputy Minister of Criminal Policy has resigned following a corruption investigation against him.
We are working with all the institutions with the aim of recapturing and finding those truly responsible for this, which is a significant act of corruption within our institutions.
Underfunded Paraguayan prisons have become recruiting grounds for the cartels. The Brazilian PCC has almost 20,000 members and dominates cocaine trafficking in Sao Paulo.
And now to our picture of the week. It was taken in Ciudad Hidalgo, Chiapas, Mexico, and shows a woman from Guatemala holding her child as she and a group of migrants attempt to head north to cross the border into the United States. It's one of the latest caravans of Central American migrants stopped by Mexican police and later deported. You can see forces using tear gas to disperse the crowds. Mexico has stepped up operations after US President Donald Trump threatened to impose economic sanctions if Mexico fails to curb migrant flows. Damaging recent earthquakes have forced thousands of Puerto Ricans to sleep in shelters, and they need aid. The government of the Caribbean island and US territory has called the government in Washington to issue a major disaster declaration. Meanwhile, a video has gone viral on social networks, reportedly showing a warehouse full of boxes of bottled water and unused emergency aid. Some of the supply appeared to be expired, and crowds of angry demonstrators are accusing authorities of failing to organize adequate operations to help the population. In Brazil's city of Rio, thousands of residents have been facing a running water crisis. Experts have recorded an abnormal amount of geosmin, a substance produced by microalgae that proliferate in water. Authorities and the company in charge of water distribution insist the substance isn't dangerous, but the residents our team spoke to complain of nausea and stomach aches. Our next report from our correspondent in Brazil takes you to the areas of Rio most affected and also to the source of the problem.
In the heat of Rio's summer, it's not so easy right now for people to quench their thirst. Residents are stocking up on bottled water because tap water comes out cloudy and smelly in almost half of the city. The situation does not look like it will improve soon. In this working class district, it's impossible to find bottles at the supermarket. This drink depot only has half-liter bottles.
The supplier says we have to wait. He cannot produce enough.
Many people here are used to drinking filtered tap water, but they're concerned about its color and smell.
We have a filter at home, and we have to buy water. It has a strong earthy taste, as if it were drawn from a pit. So we're afraid of drinking it because we may have a stomachache.
Some hospitals have received twice as many patients with symptoms of gastroenteritis and nausea as usual. Nearly 2 hours away from the city center, Rio's water is drawn from the Guandu River Basin, then treated by the company SEDAI, which distributes it to the region's nearly 9 million inhabitants. Here, pollution is visible to the naked eye. Biologist Mario Moscatelli has been denouncing this situation for 20 years.
What we have here 24 hours a day, 365 days a year is the arrival of sewers. Do you smell this? The regional and federal authorities must coordinate to act immediately and find solutions to prevent these releases.
The Public Water Authority claims to have detected geosmin in the water it distributes. It's a substance produced by algae. The authority says it poses no health risk. Local police have opened an investigation. 15 days after the crisis began, SEDAI apologized to residents and dismissed its director of sanitation.
It's a period of American history that only lasted 13 years, but inspired dozens of films and books. Eliot Ness and Al Capone are two names that will forever be associated to the time of Prohibition, when there was a total ban on alcohol. This month marks the 100th anniversary of the beginning of a time when speakeasies flourished. This concept of hidden bars has re-emerged, proving rather popular nowadays. Selena Sykes and David Gilbert have this report.
Hidden behind a mirror in a block of apartments. You've certainly got to be in the know to have a drink at this bar in Washington.
Well, so we wanted to make a bar that sort of paid tribute to these great cocktail bars of the past, and also to pay tribute to the speakeasy revival that's been going on around the world.
The theme here is the Roaring '20s, when Prohibition meant that Americans that wanted a drink had to go underground. Congress voted to pass the 18th Amendment of the Constitution after being pressurized by the temperance movement, which believed banning alcohol would resolve a number of society's problems. The law came into effect on the 17th of January 1920, and with it came the emergence across the country of illegal bars known as speakeasies. Bootlegging, the smuggling of alcohol, became big business for gangsters, including the notorious Al Capone. According to this historian, Prohibition was also a way for white Anglo-Saxon Protestants to exert their way of life amid a wave of immigration.
Jews, Catholics, Italians, the Irish, it applied to African Americans, people who were seen as not living up to true American ideals. And so this was in some ways a very mean-spirited and ill-advised effort to make those people to conform to another cultural standard.
As organized crime and illegal alcohol consumption rocketed, Congress repealed Prohibition in 1933. But several towns in the United States, particularly in the Bible Belt, decided to remain teetotal. Ocean City in New Jersey is a so-called dry town where selling alcohol is banned.
They're not just appreciating it for being dry, but they appreciate the fact that it being dry improves the value of life here.
Residents can still buy beer, wine or liquor at shops on the outskirts of town. The economic benefits of alcohol consumption are hard to ignore. At an average of 9 drinks per person a week, Americans are drinking more now than when Prohibition was enacted.
That's all the time we have for. Thanks for watching Inside the Americas. See you soon.